Welcome to another exciting episode of In Conversation with Alethia. I'm your host, Alethia O'Hara Stevenson. In each episode, I sit down with amazing individuals who are doing incredible things in our communities. The show will educate, it will empower, and it will inspire you. On this episode, I am extremely honored and excited to have the talented, incredible novelist, screenwriter, speaker, producer, so many titles. He is none other than the incredible Gerry Visca. Gerry, welcome to In Conversation with Alethia.
Thank you so much, Alethia. So excited to be with you.
I'm excited to dive into this conversation. I've been part of your incredible movement of inspiring 1 million whys, and I've watched you over the years continue on that legacy. And I want to just dive into your journey. Why this mission to inspire 1 million whys globally? What is it all about?
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing me onto your beautiful show. And it's been such a lovely journey being with you over these last few years as well, and publishing you. It was years ago when I decided to leave the field of architecture to a life of inspiration. I often say I went from building buildings to building up people. It was at that time when I was inspiring, and I didn't know I was inspiring. I was helping people feel very uplifted, and I often would receive these requests from clients to spend more time with them.
Right.
So I decided in 1999 to just embark on this journey of inspiring. I didn't know at the time what it was. It wasn't 1 million whys. It was just this life of helping people get in spirit with their life purpose. Then after writing and publishing a few dozen books, I decided to help people answer the only question that matters: why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe that every man, woman, and child, regardless of age, gender, race, color, you name it, is here for a reason. And when you start to embark on this kind of journey, it just pulls you in this beautiful direction. I often say your deeper why ignites the way. And my way became inspiring 1 million whys, 1 million people to remember why they're here, to ignite that deeper reason for being in the world.
That's beautiful. And that's powerful, because so many people are here, and I would like to use the term just existing. Not many people know the true reason why they're here. And when you don't know that reason, then you're not living your best life. And so I love the fact that you're here to help bring that out in others. I want to come back to that, but I want to circle back to your recent publication and the title of this episode, which is Celebrating Women.
Nice.
You recently launched an incredible magazine honoring so many incredible, talented women from across the globe, some from right here in Dufferin County. Can you share a little bit about that journey and why you decided to dedicate an entire publication to celebrating women, their light, and their legacy?
Well, this was a huge undertaking. We have a publication, so in addition to our wide book series with 250 plus authors worldwide, these beautiful anthologies that we create, which is all connected. Everything we do is connected to 1 million whys. We have a global magazine called Why Time Mag, and it's all about, very much like your show, it's celebrating everyday people doing extraordinary things. And I've been wanting to create a special edition dedicated specifically to women. And it's funny because a lot of men always ask me, why do you spend so much time highlighting women? And I think it's time to really share that, because I think, truthfully, men have had their time. They've had their moment. And I spent a lot of time with women. I've coached thousands and thousands of women worldwide. Usually my talks are to women. My authors are women. There's very few men. The men that are there, I always welcome them. But there's just something beautiful about celebrating the magic and the beauty of what women contribute to the world. And I think it's gone for so long without it being recognized. And I find that for myself as an inspired publisher, I'm just very drawn to the realism, to the authenticity, the vulnerability of women. I think women have that ability to truly shine and to lead in roles that maybe they haven't even experienced before. So every few years we do a special edition. we decided to do an edition that was twice the size. It was over 143 pages, women in about 7 countries, and it's just been an explosive journey to help them tap into what we call their light and their legacy.
I love that. And I know central to the book was this concept around forging a legacy. And how do you define legacy, and how can women embrace this idea in their everyday lives?
It's a great question. Every time I have a conversation with a woman over what we're doing right now called Why Time, this one-on-one conversation with me and your soul, I often ask this question: what do you want to be remembered for? More specifically, what will those closest to you say about the impact that you had on their lives? And they get very emotional at that question. And for me, legacy is truly, what is that purpose that you were here to live, and what was that impact that you made on others while you were alive? And that legacy lives on. And I think if we start to really focus on legacy as a way of impacting the now, impacting our work in the present moment, you'll find that legacy is more connected to your deeper why, your deeper reason for being, now more than ever.
No, that's powerful. And, when I think about, what I want to be remembered by, it almost is an awakening, right? It lights a fire inside of you to make you really truly live, as opposed to just going through the day-to-day motions of just simply existing. So I think that's incredible, what this legacy that you're trying to build out in women.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way of our, what I like about these publications, not just that they're fun to create and inspiring to create, but it's my legacy of knowing that this man helped 1 million souls remember that deeper reason for being. And for me, I get inspired by working with people like you and other women in this world that are in this publication. There's just something so beautiful about not so much focusing on what you do, but capturing that light, that deeper essence, that reason for being. And when you start to capture that and celebrate it in a magical way, it creates this beautiful ripple effect. And I love that. I love that feeling.
I love that. And, carrying on with the same theme, this episode also featured a number of young people, children who are part of the Make-A-Wish Canada initiative. Can you share a little bit about that concept and how that came to life?
Yeah, I've been working with Make-A-Wish now for about 7 years, and I help fulfill wishes for children with cancer, and their wish is to publish their first book.
Wow.
To publish their story. And it began when my 16-year-old daughter at the time was battling stage 4 cancer. Wow. And it was at that point where Make-A-Wish was in contact with me, and they asked if I could send them a few of my books. And at that point, I had started writing novels. Remembering Why was my first novel. And they were quite moved by the story of a man who loses his son from cancer. And they asked if I would be willing to fulfill these wishes. And I said, of course. And there's something so beautiful about working with kids who, that's their legacy. They don't know if they're going to live on after their journey with cancer, but they know that they want to celebrate and capture their light and their legacy. And there's so much that can be learned from that.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to celebrate the recent, the last 4 children that we just finished publishing. And one of the most recent ones was Sarah Payne, Fight or Flight. Wow. And her story is so moving, and her life lessons. And there's something magical about when you know that your time is limited, when you finally decide, when you ask that question, knowing I will die, how do I wish to live? And that drives all of our publishing, knowing you will die, how do you wish to live? So we wanted to celebrate these 4 children in this recent issue, Women. It was just magical.
It sounds absolutely magical, and what a profound impact you've been able to have on these young people's lives, sharing their legacy, their light, and otherwise they may have never been able to have the opportunity to be published. So that's fantastic. That's right. I love
there's something beautiful in this world of social media. We're in a very digital, disconnected age where we don't see the light because we're just scrolling so quickly. Everything is so fast. so frenetic that real books matter. And when you can
Absolutely.
touch someone's heart and hold their heart just for a moment, and you won't get that in a feed. You'll get that by reading someone's story and by going deeper into their light, into their legacy. And that's why I'm so dedicated to this movement of real books, real people, and real inspiration.
Yeah, and I love that how you touched on, real books, because for me, yes, I have books on my phone, but there's nothing more magical than holding a book, a novel in your hand and
Well, that's
going
how we
through the
met.
pages.
That's how you
Exactly.
met. That's how you and I met when I had launched my novel series, The Life I Didn't Notice. At that
Yes,
point, with book one of book three. Yeah, there's
yes.
something just beautiful about coming together, and books have a way of doing that. And with Make a Wish, like Sarah's book, Fight or Flight, her launch event is this Saturday, which I'll be
How
attending. And
exciting.
there's just something beautiful about seeing her shine. And there was a point where she didn't know if she was going to make it. Her parents
Wow.
didn't know if she was going to make it. And she was okay with that because she felt that her reason for being was captured, that she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't defined by the cancer. And by putting that into a literary format that lives on, it lives beyond you and I. For who knows how much impact that'll have on another child's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to bring that point up because, here you have someone, a young person who has now
Yeah,
published shared their story about they may never know, they may never make it to tomorrow, but they were able to pour their heart and soul, their legacy into a book to hopefully
yeah,
inspire someone else to live their best life and don't just
exactly.
exist. Oh, that's absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I like what you said there. There's a lot of people that are living. And I think we're here more than just to live. We're here to live full out, to start to ignite this aliveness inside of one another. And we do that when we just start to focus on what really matters,
Yeah.
and we start to live what matters. And when we start to live what matters by asking those questions, those big thought provoking questions that, let's face it, most people don't want to answer. They don't want to ask themselves, well, knowing I will die, how do I wish to live, or
Mm-hmm.
how was my life? How did my life impact others? We're kind of just continually focused on everything outside of this one moment. But that's where the magic is. Our light and our legacy, which is what we celebrate in women in this issue, is living right now, living full out,
Mm-hmm.
playing full out, facing the fear, facing the vulnerability, facing all of it, but living through love. And that's another reason I love capturing women. It's women lead with love, and that's what this world needs now more than ever.
What we need is love. Oh my
Yes,
gosh, I
that's right. I
love.
just saw a great, the documentary with Bob Marley, and it's all we need is love, right? So,
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And on that note, we're going to take a short break and pick up the conversation with you in just a few short moments. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with In Conversation with Alethia and having a chat with Gerry Visca. Welcome back to In Conversation with Alethia. I'm here with Gerry Visca, author, novelist, speaker, and screenwriter. So we just finished the conversation talking about women celebrating their light and their legacy, and we're going to dive into another of Gerry's incredible work, and this is a transformational novel talking about the I Know Why series, sorry, the Life I Didn't Notice series, and specifically that first book, The Life I Didn't Notice. Oh my goodness.
book one of
Book
three.
one, yes. Share with us why it was important for you to dive into this transformative novel.
The Life I Didn't Notice is very, very close to my heart, and it's very special because it was inspired by thousands of conversations with women during Why Time, this one-on-one conversation with me and your soul. And during these conversations, many of the women were sharing that they can't notice their life. that they can't stop and notice the gifts, the miracles. And it stayed with me for a couple years, and I was sitting in the fields in Tuscany, and it was literally like I just heard this whisper from my soul saying, you need to create a book that helps people look up and notice the light that's passing them by. And the story was inspired by someone dear to me that had faced a near death experience. And it was at that point I decided to write this story about this lovely couple, Lily and Laszlo, who have lost their way. And it's this constant return and desire to return to a love that they once shared and once felt in their heart. So it's a beautiful story. It's very moving. It's impacted a lot of people. It then went on to a second book, and then a trilogy, The Life I Left Behind. And we also wrote a new screenplay, adapted it to a screenplay, and we have some movie producers that are interested in bringing it to the screen. And
Amazing.
it's just been a beautiful journey. It's a miracle when you just surrender to that inner knowing, that whisper of your soul. And I love writing novels from this transformative way where you're receiving all these life lessons. It's a very spiritual, transformative book, but you're not being told what to do or what to say.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, during the break, we were talking about how we first connected. And essentially, it was from one of these transformational novels that you wrote. And I was fully immersed into to the point where the pages were worn and tattered because I've read it so many times. But that was the power of that book. But more important than that is the sense of community that this book was able to bring together. You were able to bring women together, men together, to be able to talk about real life events, dealing with death, dealing with love, dealing with loss. What was that experience like for you? And as the author, now sitting back and seeing the impact it's having on everyone's lives.
Well, it's amazing. First of all, what was really cool was that we did something very unique. Actually, when I wrote the manuscript, before it got published, we sent off a traveling manuscript to 100 readers worldwide. And it was about 3 men and 97 women. And what was so amazing was the manuscript traveled from reader to reader. And some in France and some in the UK. And they were so moved by the story that they would write in the margins and they would write comments, and then they would pass it on to the next reader. And we witnessed this journey for about a year. So for me, it's magical because in this novel we celebrate what we call the 7 gifts of life. We celebrate love, light, we celebrate bliss, time, which I define as the gift of life in the present moment, truth, forgiveness, and of course death. And there are also regrets that our heroine Lily faces in the end. She faces these 7 souls that reveal to her the life that's passed her by. And I've witnessed these miracles throughout these women that I've been working with over the years. It's almost like each one of us represents one of these gifts of life. And I just find it more and more magical every single day that I spend more time with the novel.
I love that. And, you mentioned that this book, the backdrop was set in Tuscany. What additional elements when I think of Tuscany, I automatically think of love and romance and just beauty. But what additional element did, that backdrop set for the book?
Tuscany is a very magical place for me. I truly feel that my soul was there at another time. And I had written my first novel in Tuscany called Remembering Why. And it was really a spiritual dive into reincarnation, and it was at that point where I wanted to go back to Tuscany and write. So when you're in Tuscany, especially where Angela and I, my life partner, and I would be, we're in the middle of nowhere, set in a backdrop of 1,000 olive trees and a lot of wineries around us. And I would just plant myself in the middle of these fields and just write. And there's something so mystical. And the story really became the backdrop. Tuscany became the backdrop for the love that Laszlo and Lily found when they were in their 20s. And when I'm there, I feel so drawn to to the characters. I feel so drawn to the richness that Tuscany offers. And many of you, you watch movies like Under the Tuscan Sun, and I mean,
Yes.
you know how beautiful it is. But when you really exist there and listen to the quiet, you'll literally hear God's voice. You'll hear your soul's whisper, and it's just a beautiful way to write and just listen.
I love that. And, as I'm sitting here listening to you just share your story about, being in Tuscany and sitting and listening, I can't help but, think about that message and that legacy that you would hope your readers to be able to take away from living a more connected and inspired life as opposed to the fast-paced social media, next kind of a life. What message and legacy would you want to share and hope that people can take away?
I just wrote a book. I released it just recently called Living What Matters. And my message would be is to look at your life and ask yourself that question, knowing you will die, that your time is limited. It's brilliant, but it's brief. How do you wish to live? And how do you begin living? And if you ask yourself every day, if this was my last day, what would I create? And I asked myself that question every day when I was writing this novel in Tuscany, and this novel trilogy and I remember writing book 2 during COVID. We didn't know what COVID was at the time. And we were at the beginning of it, and we were just, some would say, oh, you were stuck there. I said, no, we actually were so happy to be there writing in the fields. And I felt myself, if this was the last thing I would write, people would find this manuscript, The Life I Noticed, and my soul would be at peace and I would be fulfilled. So, there's a lot of life lessons. It's to decide what you want most, truly, what your heart and your soul wants most. And don't be afraid to take action and just receive it. And I think that's the most challenging thing for all of us as humans is to receive. It's to receive love. It's to give love and receive love. Because truly love is that binding force. As you will see in this novel series, the message is that love never dies. It just changes form. And when you start to become open to that deeper reason that you're here, that you exist beyond just paying the bills, that you're here to make the world a better place, that your aliveness right now is going to contribute to people listening just to this show itself and taking action.
Absolutely. And I think it's so incredibly profound that, you talked about death, but when most people think of death, they're thinking of the end and that finality and puts you in a negative state of mind. But if you looked at it from the opposite and think of it as living your best life now, and each and every single day you get up and you have that opportunity to start anew and leave that legacy, right? You change your mind frame.
Yeah, death is a catalyst. In this novel series, The Life That I Noticed, death is the catalyst. And you'll see as you progress into book 2, which it's a year to live. The main heroine has a year to live. She's given herself a year to live. And within that year, she transforms everything. She becomes who she was meant to be. She finally starts to listen to her wise inner ninja, which is her soul, guiding her and listening to the clues of her late husband, sharing with her, this is the life you're meant to live. And when you start to look at death as the gift of life, because surely that's what the opposite of that is. Without it, we wouldn't celebrate life. And for me, I love writing in this transformative way where you will look at your life and you'll take a moment to sit with a real book in your hands and your favorite coffee or glass of wine and just enjoy the gift of being alive now, and that you've had that opportunity to be here at this time. It's the most magical time ever in human history, but it's going so fast and we're creating such a frenetic pace that we can't notice what matters. And that's the premise of The Life I Didn't Notice, is this beautiful couple that just at one point knew love, which was the center of everything. And life has passed them by.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, Gerry. And, the reality is, there's such a unique connection when you think about, again, the work that you're doing with Make-A-Wish and young people who sometimes they have a definitive time, right? They have X number of days, years, maybe months to live. But,
Yes.
oftentimes people sit back and I wish I had more time. You don't have a death sentence. You don't have a definitive period. You don't know. So why not take the opportunity to just live and be? Beautiful.
Excellent. I
That's
love that.
beautiful. That's beautiful, Gerry. I want to touch on, and I think you touched on it earlier in the show, talking about love, but I want to expand on it. So having an architectural background, you're not
Yes.
here building skyscrapers, right? You're building people. How do you imagine that women can play a bigger role in inspiring a more connected world?
I truly believe that now is the time for women. I really do. I was raised by a single mom. I've seen the results of what she created in not only in her own life as a teacher, as a seamstress, as a fashion designer, the thousands of young people that she inspired. I've seen it in my two daughters. I've always been surrounded by women. There is something so beautiful about the world that women can build. So what women can architect. And it's because women lead, from my perspective, from all of my work with 1 Million Whys, is women have this ability, this incredible ability that men can learn from, and not necessarily the other way around, but that we can learn from and just listen to the power of vulnerability, of being vulnerable, of letting go, of needing to know everything. It's one of the reasons I typically don't work with the males, is because we don't like to ask for directions.
Right.
And I think something we hate being lost. But what I've learned from the thousands of women I've worked with is sometimes you have to lose yourself to be found.
I
I think
that.
this is a beautiful time for women to stand in their power, to capture their light, to define their legacy, to live knowing why they're here.
Beautiful.
Which I call the world helped by you.
Oh, absolutely amazing. What a profound way to end this incredible episode, Gerry. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this inspired conversation celebrating women. Thank you. It has been incredible.
Thank you so much, Alethia. It's wonderful to be here.
No problem. This has been another incredible episode of In Conversation with Alethia. Thank you to our incredible sponsors, Town Teas for our logo design, and Moonstone by MA for the incredible jewelry. Thank you and see you next time.